What you think about that? What you think about anything? What you think about you? What you think about me? What you think about that? What you think about that? What you think about anything? What you think about you? What you think about me? What you think about that? I get so sick and tired of faking all the moves. I know everything that comes between us. I'm gonna let you stew.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. I don't know about you, but I know that school is starting on Monday. So if you are a student, probably some mixed feelings. If you are a parent, though, word on the street is there is a open bar night for parents to attend at 8 o'clock on Monday. So, and if you're a teacher, my wife is a teacher, you know, there could be a whole mixture of feelings, I'm sure, going back into the school year. So why don't we all just, my week was really busy. I'm in the midst of my master's program. I took my Praxis core test. If any of you even know what I'm talking about, you know that I sat at a desk for 4.5 hours. And they tested me on reading, math, and writing. So algebra from 15 years ago, 20 years ago, got pulled from the deep recesses of my brain. So have mercy on me today. That was just a few days ago. But happy that you're here today. We're going to be continuing our series, You Asked For It. And this series is all questions that you guys submitted. And questions that, many of us have interacted with, things that have been handed to us that don't serve us, that we're maybe looking for a fresh perspective on. And today we're going to be continuing that. Today we're going to be continuing, and, in the spirit of my authentic self, I like to touch on really simple, non-controversial topics. As you know, we talked about the nature of God, and today I don't want to let you down. We're going to tap into more things that I truthfully do not have an answer to. So if you came here today looking for a black or white answer, a know-it-all pastor on the stage, I'm sorry, you would have had to meet me 10 years ago. She is not here anymore. Wow, I got good jokes this morning. Thank you. This is great. But I want you guys to picture this. It is 4:30 in the morning, okay? It's 4:30 in the morning. I am in my deep slumber, counting sheep, all the things that will happen when something stirs me awake. I kind of look over, notice that my wife is not in bed, think that's kind of odd, and notice that our bathroom light is on. Again, 4:30 in the morning, we are not early risers. Something's off. So I, kind of wait a minute. I hear her making some noise, so I kind of roll over and I say, hey, what's going on? Might I add, my wife is very pregnant, very pregnant at this time. She's about almost 37 weeks pregnant. We are anticipating our little one. And so, I'm like, maybe it's just, those of you that have been pregnant know at 4:30 nature calls. And sometimes you got to go to the bathroom or something, right? So I'm just like, but the light was on. That was just, something was off about that. So I'm like, sleepy, hey, everything okay? Silence for a moment. Hey, what's going on? And then I hear through a nervous chuckle, I think my water broke. And, of course, me being just so calm, cool, and collected, I just proceeded to go, what? And full-on movie scene panic. I am humbled to even stand here and admit that. Everything in me thought that when the moment came, I wouldn't be that person. And I was. And I've accepted it now. But, there were also some reasons why I was in full-on panic. Our hospital bags were not packed. Our car seat was not installed. Our nursery was not finished. Our birth plan was not, finalized. So, we were really prepared for this moment. And, after me, like, full on panicking for about 10 minutes, like, full on panicking, we got ourselves together and made our way. And not even 12 hours later, our sweet little girl, Riley, was here in the world. I know. Those of you that know, clap for her, not me. Not me. We don't need to talk about those 12 hours. But, yes, Smiley Riley, as many of you know her. And the crazy thing is, I remember in the midst, adrenaline and stress and just, like, it's all a blur. Parents, you probably know that it's just all a blur, different experiences. But I remember the moment that I, met her. Like, I remember the exact moment that all of a sudden, it's kind of chaotic, and then there's, a little baby on my wife's chest. And it was insane. I just stood there in, absolute awe. First, awe at my wife, because birth, whoa. But awe at this precious little baby that I had been talking to, reading books to, dreaming about, going to therapy to prepare for, all of the things. And all of a sudden, she's there. And she's perfect. And she's innocent and kind of looks a little funny, let's just be honest. You don't have to tell a new mom, oh, it's so cute. We know. The, wrinkly, it's okay. They get cuter, thankfully. But hormones were doing its thing, and I was just smitten and so excited. And I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. I couldn't imagine anything more perfect in that moment. It was just the most beautiful thing. And the crazy thing is, as you see, the question that I'm addressing today is talking about that moment. Are we born, there's your first fill-in, sinful? Is that the nature of who we are? Simple, right? Told you, not a complex topic whatsoever. But I just want you to picture this newborn little baby. Maybe you've had one in your past experience. Maybe you're in the throes of newbornness. I don't know. Maybe you're a grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, big brother, sister. I want you to just think about the beauty of that little baby. And just to keep that in the back of your mind for about the next 10 minutes, that would be great. But the question we're talking about today is, are we born sinful? I know that word is loaded. Little teaser is our O2 weekend may or may not be interacting with that topic of sinfulness. So the question is, are we born that way? Now, I'm curious, how many of you have been told you are a sinner? Raise your hand. Don't lie to me. Okay. So I want you to know that after the service today, there will be trauma therapists in the lobby to just to help work through some of that stuff. Yeah, we're handed that, right? We're handed that. We're told from a very, very young age, right? Jeremiah 17, I believe it's verse 9. Your heart is deceitful. You are sinful. You are worthy of death. Inspiring, isn't it? Makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Now, I'm also sure that there are some people in this room that have no idea what I'm talking about, and I am a little envious of you. I'm a little envious if that was not handed to you before you can maybe even comprehend what in the world that even meant, right? I saw a video recently on social media of a woman talking to kids. I'm assuming it was some Sunday school thing. I don't know the dynamics of it, but she's talking to them and she's just telling them, you deserve death. You deserve death. You deserve death. You deserve death. And there's a humor. And I went to the comments, of course, because you know that on social media, it's not about the video. The comments are where the real action happens. So I go to the comments and I'm blown away by these I don't know, maybe call them Christian influencers or things that are just eating it up. Oh yeah, tell them how it is. And it's just like a comedy show. And I was angry, let me just be honest, but it was so sad to me. These innocent children, and she's just standing there and pointing at them. You're a sinner. You're worthy of death. You're worthy of death. This is a familiar thing that a lot of us have gotten handed. At the foundation of this idea is the theology, the doctrine, the idea of original sin. And this idea of original sin says that, we know Garden of Eden, right? So I'm going to speak in some metaphors here. Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve eat the tree from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The beginning story, right? The fall of humanity is what has been told. It has been said for ages, right? Somebody made a decision. Who even knows how many years ago? Who even knows if it happened that way? And now we have inherited, or we have taken on this identity that we have no say in. This is the idea of original sin. This is the idea of, are we born sinful? This idea of original sin says that it's a condition, that it's not something that we do, but it's just something that we are. So it's not saying that we sin, that's different. We'll talk about that idea. It's saying that we are, in our identity, sinful and worthy of death. It's even based in the idea that as a newborn baby is born who has done nothing at all, right? Maybe taken a breath, maybe let out that first cry, that they are damaged by original sin. And again, it is something that we have just supposedly inherited. It's something that we have no choice in, and it tells us that from the moment that we enter this world, that we are bad, that we are worthy of death, which goes into a whole other topic for a whole other time about the cross and that whole relationship. And many of you raised your hands, right? Many of you were handed or were told, right, that you are a sinner, that you are worthy of death, that at your core, you are bad. And if I'm being transparent, which you know me, I always will be, I honestly think that that is one of the most damaging messages that Christianity has handed the world. I think that it is one of the most damaging messages to stand in the midst of just people and tell them that they have no choice in the matter, that they just inherited it, and that they are worthy of death. I love this. I don't love this phrase, but I think it sums it up really well. Chronic unworthiness. I heard that used to kind of address the feeling that lingers as for those of us that were handed this idea of original sin. Chronic unworthiness, it thrives under this doctrine. It's basically a belief that we are fundamentally flawed at our core, and it is chronic, and we are constantly at war. Chronic unworthiness. That resonated with me, if I'm being transparent. I've struggled a lot of my life to live into the value of me just being me, because I was handed the idea that I was bad, that I was flawed, that I was sinful. And then let me add on top of that, that from a young age, I was also handed that my queerness was a disgrace. It was really like a perfect duo for chronic unworthiness and just self-hatred. And I recognize, though, the complexity of this topic. I recognize that as we look out in the world and we see the things that are taking place in our government, in our nation, in Israel, right? It might be easy to be like, maybe that's right. It might be easy to be like, oh yeah, we are pretty bad. But the reality is that humanity is so complex. You are complex. I am complex. I recognize that my brain, my mind, my body is not this binary, good, bad, sinful, not sinful, black and white experience. That's simply just not how most of life is. But unfortunately, in a lot of spaces, people need that to find some safety or answers, right? They need that certainty. But the reality is, I don't think that there is one. I don't think that we can sit back and truly say humanity is this, because we are way too complex. But one thing, you're probably wondering, Brooke, then what in the world are you doing up there today? If you're not going to answer the question, sorry, you can talk to Ryan about it later. One thing that I do want to do today is to explore an alternative, right? I could happily stay up here and share a lot of my thoughts on the doctrine of original sin and nitpick Bible verses and ideas and things. But I don't think in this space, in this time that we have landed here, that would be the most helpful. I would much rather today use our time to interact with some alternatives, to interact with, instead of maybe the shame that has been handed to us, to remind us of the narratives that God has handed to us, to remind us to look at, to sit with an alternative. I don't want to spend our time just hating on it, although I could, but I won't. I'll do my best. They might biasly come up, I admit. So let's do that, right? Let's together this morning, let's look at some of the wisdom that Scripture has handed us. Let's look at some alternatives because you raised your hands. You know the pain, the confusion, the complexity of the idea of sinfulness as an identity. So we're going to do our best this morning to look at maybe something different. How does that sound? Does that sound okay? Oh, I got a woo. Somebody is like, trauma, ready. I see you. So let's do that. We're going to start in Psalms this morning. We're going to start in Psalms 139, verse 14. I'm sure many of you have heard this before. If not, it's a beautiful one. Psalms 139, verse 14 says, I praise you, David potentially writing here, for I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That word fearfully, we don't use that a lot. I know that when I think about the word fear, I think of fear, scared, right? I remember growing up hearing the phrase, fear God and give him glory. I feel like that's in the Bible somewhere. You guys can tell me later where that's at. Fear God and give him glory. And I honestly did. I was terrified of him. I was terrified of him and what maybe they could do, right? And I think that this idea, this word, fearfully, I think that naturally our human mind goes to scared. But this is not saying that, contrary to maybe how newborns might look when they come out, that you are scary. That was good too. Something was in that coffee this morning. I didn't drink it, but maybe just smelling it. I don't know. But this word fearfully, it actually means to stand in awe of. It means to reverence. The word that comes to my mind is speechless, whoa. Pretty crazy that that word is used to describe you. For you are something worthy to stand in awe of. You are something worthy to be reverenced. We don't often hear that attached to us and our identity. And however you are as you landed here today. Maybe you had a messy morning. Maybe you woke up angry. Maybe you woke up really happy. But however that is, and however you landed here today, you are something to stand in awe of. So just look at the person next to you. Take them in. You guys are worthy to stand in awe of. I know. Ah. Well done. You all get an A+. Now, there's something so beautiful about this idea. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Now, I know that there is a lot of conversation around the creation story. I recognize the complexity of that. And I recognize that we don't know, and we will never really know, the exact way in which we all got here. And that's okay, because for me, that doesn't take anything away from this. Whether God intrinsically, perfectly created us out of the dust or a big bang happened, you are fearfully and wonderfully made and created. And I just imagine what would happen if that's just the nature of the things that we were told from the moment that we were born. I'm sure maybe some of you were told, right? We all learned the creation story in our various Sunday school and stuff classes, right? Church camp. And we might have been told that, but how conflicting to be told, you were made in the image of God, death. You're fearfully and wonderfully made, you killed Jesus. I know that I didn't know what to do with that when I was 9. I don't always know what to do with that now, and I'm not 9 anymore. And there's an author, her name is Rachel Held Evans. She's phenomenal. She writes phenomenal books. She's an amazing woman who had an amazing story. And she wrote this. She said, this is a verse referencing the verse that we just read, that churches should tattoo. I said tattoo in church. This is a verse that churches should tattoo on every child's heart before telling them anything else about who God is. And I'll say that even now. Maybe you're not a child. Maybe you are an adult and these are some of your first experiences. Maybe you're stepping back into church after being incredibly hurt or damaged by some of these very messages. I think that this is something that is so important to hand out, to tattoo, to give, to remind, that we are something to stand in awe of, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made and beautiful exactly as you are. Not who you're going to be tomorrow, not in a year from now, not who you were yesterday, but right here and right now. This is where our human story begins. This is where our human story starts. The very question itself, are we born sinful, is just a wrong question in and of itself. It's a great reminder to know that our story starts not with sin, but with sacredness, with fear, this idea of fear, with wonder, with awe, and with reverence. The human story begins there. And when we begin to look at people that way, can you just imagine what would happen if we began to look at people like this? If we began to look at our neighbors, at the people around us as like mysteries to behold? I think it would change a lot of things in comparison to the massive problem that problem is not the word, but that's what's in my mind. So the massive problem that we see of othering people constantly. Just imagine what would happen if we begin to stand in the midst and see people as mysteries behold. It kind of makes me think of like an artist creating something and just like, whoa. I'm not artistic whatsoever, but I have a lot of appreciation when I walk or I see a live artist create. Just blows my mind that humanity can do that. Or it reminds me of like standing on the edge. I love to go hiking, don't do it as much as I used to, but I love to go out, and my favorite thing, even though it scares my wife to death, she hates heights, but I love standing on the edge. Someone said edge, you knew where I was going. And you just look up and you're just standing in awe, and you feel that wind, and you realize just how big the world is. Anybody else know that feeling? Just love stand on the edge? Yes. Just stand there though, and just take it in. Don't stumble, please. Just speechless. That is like the language that is associated with your existence. And the funny thing is that I feel like we're actually kind of uncomfortable with that. You don't have to raise your hand, but do you sense like, are you sure, Brooke? Me? Are you sure? Yes, I'm very sure. So is God, as we'll see in a moment. We are a beauty to behold. And this means, by the way, all people. This means that all skin tones are a beauty to behold. This means that all political parties are beauties, I know, I'll get there, to behold. That at the core, religion, sexual orientation, gender identities, that at the core there is beauty to behold. Some of you got real quiet. Some of you aren't so sure about that. And that's okay. I think I just want to remind us that it's not so much about the person as it is about the idea. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that, yeah, there are some very, very painful narratives and messages that exist. There are religions, people, political parties, etc., 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 that live into narratives that are incredibly wounding. And I'm not talking about the ideas. I'm not talking about the pain in which maybe they give. I'm talking about the core, the creation, the maybe even, dare I say, God within them. And that's why I think, I'm going to get on my soapbox, I do it once every time. That's why I think it is very important for us as we are interacting with the world, as we're deconstructing our faith, as we are interacting with the political climates in your workplaces. That's why I think it's so important for us to dissect, to deconstruct, to analyze, to disagree with ideas more than the individual. To not wish harm on someone, to not wish ill on someone, but to get really angry at maybe what the message is that they are saying. Does that make sense? I think that is a much, not that you were asking, but I think that that's a much healthier approach to politics, religion, business, all relationship. To think about the message or the idea more than the very person that is there, because in the midst of that person, there is goodness in there. Maybe that's the very reason why they are putting off such anger, because there's a vulnerability they're trying to protect. Let's look at another verse together. Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, back to the very beginning. Then God said, "Let us make man and woman and every other person in our image and after our likeness." So God created woman, I'm going to say that first, man and every other in their image. In the image of God, they created them. Male and female, he created them. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was what? Very good. Now again, I don't know what actually happened. I kind of wish I could go back and just get a little 10-second, anybody else a 10-second snippet? Can you give me just a little something? What really happened at the beginning? It's bugging me. But regardless of what it was, God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. The first thing that God noticed in you, the first thing that God noticed in me was our goodness. The first thing God saw was goodness. There's nothing about sin in this. God delighted in his creation. It reminds me of the old Campbell soup commercial. Good. Yeah. Tomato soup with a grilled cheese. Yummy. Today's a cool day. Maybe today's one of those days. But it reminds me of the Campbell soup commercial and just this just goodness, this satisfaction, this I like this. I like what has been created. And I think that it's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate that we are so uncomfortable with the idea that God looks at you, that he sees good. Not only just good, very good. And if we were created in God's likeness, then let us not forget that deep within us is also God's love. Because we know that at the center of who God is, at the center of who Jesus is and what he did, was just an immense amount of goodness and love. And that love that is used to describe God is the same love that dwells in you. And at the core of who we are is love. It was embedded in our design. You are full of love. And I want us to just take a minute with that, because I think it's really easy to rush through this. I know even for myself, as I was preparing, I was I've read these verses. I've memorized these verses. Cool. And it's easy in the midst of the complexity of faith and spirituality and pain and all of that to just kind of move through it. But I want us to just pause here for a moment. And I want you to think, What does that stir up in you? I am very good. Does that stir up discomfort? Do you find there's a part of you that wants to like criticize that? Anybody else have a really strong inner critic? Yes. I am very good. I think that it is up to us to remember the divinity that is within us. I think that we forget, and you know what? I'm not here to shame you because I forget too. I am so quick to forget the goodness that is inside. There's wounding that comes and blinds my vision, and that's okay. There's experiences, there's people that trigger me, and I forget that there's any goodness in them. But this morning, I just want us, you might get tired of me hearing it, saying it, but I want us just to continue to pause and remember, because this message that you are sinful, I sometimes think we don't even know how much it's deeply embedded in our hearts and our minds. The last verse we're going to look at today is Ephesians 2:10. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. There it is again. Which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them, that we should walk in the good works. Now, this is not about earning salvation, but this is about living into the goodness that God has already placed in you. Like, there's so much in the world that leads us to forget this. There's so much that in the world that leads us to betray the good works that are in us. Maybe it's narratives of what the world says about you and who you are. Whatever it might be, maybe it is people in your life that are saying things to you that are not true. I've gone through that not long ago, right? Where people have some things to say about you. But we can wake up each day knowing that we are beloved and that we are good and that we are also made for good works. Now we can live into this peacemaking because it is in us. I've said a lot about goodness and good works. I've said a lot about being fearfully and wonderfully made, and if you might have zoned out for a few minutes, that's okay. Maybe you were distracted by your growling stomach. But I don't want you to miss this, all right? Just zone in with me for a moment, lock in for a moment. The human story does not begin with sin. We can just like erase that. Right? I'm not going to get into analyzing and breaking that all down. There's a time and a place for that. But the human story does not begin with sin. It begins with sacredness. Scripture tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you, yes, you, and you, and you, and you, were created in God's image. And not only that, but you were created to live out good works. Before anything else, before the complexity of the world, before wounding takes place, all of that, at the core is goodness. You are so beloved. All right, so we're going to practice something because we all need to rewire our brains, okay? We are going to say together this phrase. It's only 3 words, all right? Beloved, not broken. Okay, so on the count of 3, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, we're going to say together, beloved, not broken, because I think we need to say it. And because I think it's so good for our brains to be rewired and to set aside the belief of anything other. Okay? 3, 2, 1. Beloved, not broken. That's nice. I want us to not forget that. Beloved, not broken. You're not broken. You're not sinful, you're not a disgrace, you're not worthy of death. And when we start from this blessing instead of from this idea of brokenness, we start to see ourselves and we start to see others not as something that needs to be fixed, but as mysteries to behold. Faith really then just becomes a remembering at its core. It becomes a remembering. Because the question is not, am I good enough? That's not the question. The question is not, am I good enough, but can I remember who I have always been? And so what does this mean? It all sounds nice, But what does this mean in our everyday lives? As we leave here, as we go about, as school starts, as summer comes to an end, as the best season ever, fall begins, what does this mean? One practical way is that it means that we can acknowledge, or maybe we can even admit and live into the idea that maybe we have participated in the wounding. Maybe there were moments that we forgot about the goodness within ourselves and maybe another, and in a moment we participated in the wounding. A practical way is to acknowledge how maybe we have participated in that narrative, right? Maybe in a heated moment, we've attacked someone's character or something about who they are. We forgot. A practical way is to bring peace into this tension, to ask, can I respond as someone rooted in blessing, not fear? Can I be someone who is remembering the awe of the individuals in front of me and root myself in blessing, in goodness, not in fear? Another practical way is to be a person of healing, to be a person that speaks this belovedness, this sacredness, this wonderful, fearing message out in the midst of others. That's what we're about here at Crossroads. Peacemaking. Peacemaking. To say you are not a problem to be fixed. So many people have this internalized message deep within them that they are a problem to be fixed. But the reality is that we should be saying things that you matter exactly as you are. And so this morning, maybe what is God inviting you in as we're going into a new week? Maybe you're a new person. Maybe this faith experience is new for you. I encourage you to sit with this idea of belovedness. I encourage you to sit with and to pause. What might that look like? It would look like this: to sit quietly, put your hand over your heart, maybe close your eyes, and allow yourself to behold you. To stand in awe of you. Not criticize, not say, this should be better, I should have done. Don't should on yourself. Gotcha. Some of you were like, oh, okay. Whew. But just to stand in awe of you. Maybe that's just enough. Maybe you're newly committed to this journey. We had baptisms last week. Was that last week? Wow. That was. Sorry. A lot has happened. Maybe you're newly committed to this peacemaking path. And to you, I think that it would be great to speak the sacredness into someone else, to tell someone that you see it in them, to speak that truth instead of critique, to have small words. These small words, I like to call it like holy rebellion, where instead of saying like sinner, no, but to say like, I see goodness in you, to say that you reflect something of God to me. Whoa, that's so sacred. To speak that truth instead, to engage in that type of holy rebellion, to change those messages. And maybe you're a veteran peacemaker. Maybe you've been doing this for a while. Maybe you've been a part of this peacemaking journey. You've been advocating. You've been showing up. You've been standing up in the midst of systems that are doing such a disservice to people. And to you, I encourage you to rest. I encourage you not to depend on your usefulness or what you can do, but to receive that grace. Don't just distribute it, but to sit and to rest into the idea that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, even as you rest, even as you behold. At Crossroads, we do communion every week. We have this time of communion to reflect, to think, to participate. And honestly, I think that this is a great time to participate and to remember, to pause. Our communion song today is a song called I Am Good. I am good. How many times have you sang that in church? Our communion song is a song, I am good, because at our core, our soul is well. Because we are good and beloved. You guys will recognize the tune. It's a famous hymn that's kind of been rewritten. But I want you, as we move into this time of communion, I want you to recognize, maybe within yourself, how this doctrine of original sin, maybe you've adopted it. Maybe even today you're realizing, I actually think that at my core I'm not good. And I hope that throughout this time you can sing this song and maybe even adopt a new identity. Maybe adopt a new identity that is not rooted in this idea that you inherited something that nobody deserves, which is death. That you are good, that there is nothing wrong with you, that you don't have to hide any parts of yourself, that you can show up and be as you are. And if someone can't stand in the presence of you, that's not because of you. You are good as you are. I hope that this can maybe be a reintroduction to yourself, that you will be able to see the you that God has always seen, the goodness in you. And so on your tables, you'll see that there are some gluten-free crackers. If you're in the back, there's some tables and stuff that have gluten-free crackers and gluten-free juice, non-alcoholic juice. And I just encourage you to participate, if you want, in the remembering. As this song is sung, to maybe embrace a new identity, to maybe reconsider the way in which you have thought about yourself and the world around you, to maybe reconsider the messages that were handed to you in maybe your faith tradition, and replace it with the goodness of Jesus in you, and the goodness that you are. That it's really cool, honestly, for me to stand and to just behold. And so the body of Christ and the blood of Christ shed for you, all can take, all are welcome. Reflect, you are good.